Good day and welcome to the SNN.Network Summer Virtual Event. Our next presenting company is Tego Cyber. It is now my pleasure to turn the floor over to Shannon Wilkinson, CEO of Tego Cyber. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce you today to Tego Cyber. Tego means to shield, cover, and protect in Latin. And as a cybersecurity company, that's exactly what we've been designed to do. So our mission at Tego Cyber is all about building intelligent, state-of-the-art threat intelligence platforms and solutions with the idea that we can collect and enrich threat data to help enterprises quickly identify and to react to threats within their environment. Our founding team really identified some gaps within the cyber threat intelligence market that we believed that our solutions could fit, as well as fill the gaps that we identified within threat intelligence. But first, let's talk about cybersecurity and some of the challenges that we face in enterprises and corporations today. And it could really be boiled down to three main points: the growing number of threats, the complexity of threats, and the increasing frequency that enterprises face threats. So if we look at the growing number of threats, we find that cybersecurity really is a day-to-day struggle for many businesses. Add in the frequency is that we see just during the pandemic, for example, there's been about a 300% increase in cybercrime. But if you're enterprise, some interesting statistics come in that on average, the University of Maryland found a computer that's connected to the internet is attacked every 39 seconds. That's about 2,200 times per day, and that's one single computer. If you're an enterprise, let's multiply that by 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, and you can see how quickly the number of threats the enterprise faces grows. And of course, the increasing complexity of threats. So if you think about phishing scams, if you remember to the good old days, it was about penny stocks or some sort of enhancement pills or even the Nigerian prince phishing scam. But what we see today is that phishing scams have increased in sophistication, and they're very easily able to fool enterprises and people to fall for those threats. So the FBI actually estimated in 2020, phishing emails resulted in the loss of $1.8 billion. And of course, if you are watching the trends of ransomware attacks have been around actually since the 1980s. It started on a big old floppy disk sent to people that attended a World AIDS conference by the United Nations, and they asked for a ransom to be sent to a P.O. box in Canada. But today, ransomware attacks have evolved with the proficiency and proliferation of cryptocurrencies, as well as the cyber criminals have basically reinvested the money that they've gotten through the ransomware attacks into their criminal organizations and improved their code. So it's not just about the encryption of data anymore, but it's really also a data breach component to a ransomware attack. And even now we see even triple extortions where ransomware actors will start calling the customers of victims of ransomware. So if your company is attacked, then your customers are contacted and asked to pay a ransom as well. So we just see, you know, the number of threats enterprises face, as well as the complexity that they face on a daily basis, has grown. And it should be no surprise, actually, to see that, you know, cybersecurity spending has grown year over year since 2012. And we expect it actually will continue to grow through 2026 to reach about approximately $270 billion per year in global annual cybersecurity spending. Now, the space that Tego Cyber sits in is specifically a small market segment within the overall cybersecurity market known as the threat intelligence market segment. That's estimated to be worth $5.1 billion today, but growing at a rate of about 20% year over year. So expected to be about $12.5 billion by 2026. Now, one of the interesting things is not only that is this an emerging market segment, but it's a market segment that's actually growing at twice the rate of the general cybersecurity market. So you see the general cybersecurity market is growing at a smaller rate, but because of this new emerging market of threat intelligence, it's growing at a much faster rate. And Tego Cyber sits perfectly within this market segment. One of the nice things about being in an emerging market segment is it means that there are not a lot of competitors within the space because it is an emerging market. So there are kind of three main competitors within the space, mostly privately held. Recorded future threat quotient, to some degree Anomaly is also a competitor. But because this market is really at its infancy, the possibilities for exponential growth are significant within this market segment. So we'll talk a little bit about the Tego Cyber Threat Intelligence Platform and what we do that's a bit different than some of the other providers that are out there. And excuse me, what the Tego Threat Intelligence Platform does, if I can boil it down to kind of simple terms for people, is that, excuse me, the Threat Intelligence Platform takes in all this raw threat data from different sources out on the internet, the dark web. It might consist of, let's say, a text file of IP addresses that have been identified as malicious. And what we're doing at Tego Cyber is that we're taking in all of that threat data that our team vets and curates and bringing it into our platform, compiling it, analyzing it, taking a step to deduplicate because there's lots of duplication out there. And then we're adding additional context to that. So what additional context means is, those text files will have just a list of IP addresses that say these IP addresses are bad, but you really don't know why they're bad. So what we're doing by adding the additional context is that we're kind of delivering the who, what, when, where, how of that single little piece of information. This IP address is bad. So we'll tell you this IP address is bad because it belongs to this threat group operating out of this country. They're known to do these type of bad activities. And then with our integration into existing cybersecurity tools, we're also able to give the security operations teams another vital piece of information of it's found on this number of instances within your environment. So really giving all the information that a security operator needs at their fingertips so that they can make a quick, informed decision about what they need to do next once a threat is identified within their environment. So basically what our tool does is it gives all that critical information to the security operations team, but it also increases the return on investment of existing cybersecurity investments of the enterprise, and of course saves time and allows what's known as speed to decision for a security operations team, which is key because the faster you can respond to an incident means the possible impact of a cyber incident is much lower. So I mentioned that we're integrating into existing cybersecurity tools, and our first integration is with a well-known SIEM platform. And I know I'm talking a lot of jargon because I am a technologist. SIEM stands for System Event Information Monitoring, SIEM. And basically what SIEM platforms do are they take in all the information, all the logs from the servers, the firewalls, the switches, really anything that the enterprise can get a log off, even IoT devices, goes into the SIEM platform. And it used to be used by enterprises to say, how much bandwidth is this office using? What's the performance of my servers? But more recently, cybersecurity teams have realized that all the data for the enterprise is located in the SIEM platform, and they can use it to identify threats within the enterprise and hunt for threats within the enterprise. So it has become more and more a cybersecurity tool for security operations teams. Splunk is definitely the market leader within SIEM platforms, as trusted by 91 of the Fortune 100. They have approximately 15,000 clients worldwide and are adding about 450 every quarter, so growing at a pretty good rate. And one of the nice things that Splunk has is they have something called Splunk Base, which is very much like the app marketplace for your mobile phone. And what Splunk-based does is it allows customers of Splunk to go search for apps. Very easy, just like you would install an app for your phone. Let's say I want threat intelligence, or I've heard of Tego Cyber. You go type in threat intelligence or Tego Cyber, our app pops up with a little install button, you click install. You do get a license key from Tego, and that's where the customer will pay for their license, which I'll get into in a little bit. But then as soon as the customer plugs in that license key, then they start ingesting all of that threat data and threat intelligence from Tego Cyber that has that additional context that the security operations team needs. We have been in beta testing for approximately 1.5 months. We did a soft launch of our product during Black Hat, which is a cybersecurity conference held in Las Vegas every August. And we got excellent feedback on our product, and we are expecting a full commercial launch hopefully in the very near future next month. This is actually a screenshot of our platform integrated into the Splunk platform. The Splunk SIEM platform basically serves up the information, identifying the top threats within the customer environment, whether it be an IP address, malware, domains, phishing URLs, those kind of things. Also, a bit of geolocation so that the customer knows where the threats are coming from, and then boiling it down into some dashboards where they can see like the top IP threats that they may be experiencing within their environment. So really, some of the competitive advantages that we've talked about, two being, of course, the integration into existing cybersecurity tools, the SIEM platforms, is a key differentiator for Tego Cyber. Not all threat intelligence providers are doing that. And then the second thing that really sets us apart is that context, the who, what, when, where, how, giving the information to the security operations team so that they do have speed to decision. But then another differentiator that we have at Tego Cyber is that we have something that's known as recursive searches. And what those essentially are is what we know today is not necessarily something that's just going to happen in the future. The threats that we've identified today are often have been threats for the past couple of weeks or even months. So if you look at perhaps the SolarWinds hack that happened in the past couple of months, you'll see that we identified IP addresses and servers within AWS that had been active for about 6 months during that SolarWinds hack. It's important that we don't just look forward and say, are these IP addresses touching my environment in the future? But we need to look back and say, these IP addresses have been malicious for the past 6 months. As a customer, I need to look back 6 months and see, has this ever been in my environment? Am I impacted by the SolarWinds hack? And, where am I impacted by the SolarWinds hack? So the recursive searches allow the customers to see what incidents may have occurred in the past before we've identified something as a threat. So I mentioned about purchasing a license key. So we are very much a software as a service platform. We're an annual licensing fee of $75,000 per year per customer installation. And what that means is typically every enterprise will have one installation of their SIEM platform. So every enterprise typically would just pay for one licensing fee, but it would be about $75,000 per year. What that means, and if you take a look at our projections and what our growth strategy is just with the Splunk user base in gaining 100 clients by June of 2022, means that we capture just a very small percentage of that 15,000 customer base for Splunk. And then, growing very slowly year over year. But what that turns into as far as revenue goes is possible revenues in the first year of $7.5 million. Because we're software as a service, we have very low overhead and direct selling costs. So what you find is that after you take out the direct selling costs and the operational costs, you have profits of approximately $5.5 million for the first year. And then, of course, growing, increasing. Nice thing about software as a service, you add more clients, you just have a hockey stick of revenue. And these estimates are based just on the Splunk customer base. Tego Cyber is not stopping with the integration of Splunk. SIEM. There are approximately 25 different SIEM platforms out there today. We have a very aggressive roadmap of integrating into 10 different SIEM platforms over the next 2 years. Our next integration target is Elastic SIEM, followed by potentially Devo, Google Chronicle, IBM QRadar, AT&T Cybersecurity, formerly known as AlienVault, LogRhythm, just to name a few of our integration targets that we are looking at for over the next 2 years. Now, technology companies are great, and we have an exciting product offering, but without a strong management team, a lot of technology companies and cybersecurity companies struggle. So Tego Cyber has taken the time to find industry experts to join both our board as well as management of the company, starting with myself. Shannon Wilkinson, I started my career off with the United Nations as a software developer, grew through my career into leading development teams, designing software architecture, actually co-founded a cybersecurity company focused on small to medium business cybersecurity solutions with my husband, Troy Wilkinson, who's a cybersecurity rock star in his own right. We exited and sold that company to private equity in mid-2019. I decided I wanted to continue the entrepreneurial journey with Troy's expertise in threat intelligence, and we co-founded Tego Cyber in September of 2019. Now, I mentioned Troy is a cybersecurity rock star in his own right. Troy started his career in law enforcement in doing digital forensic investigations, so things like child pornography, bank fraud, organized crime. You name it, if it happened on a computer, he probably investigated it. Today, he is the global head of cybersecurity operations for a Fortune 300 advertising media company out of New York. Troy adds a ton of vision and experience, as well as sitting on the other side of the table, being in global cybersecurity operations for an extremely large organization, to be able to tell us some of the shortcomings, some of the frustrations of security operations teams on a daily basis. We're also joined by Michael De Valera. He's a technologist out of New York City, over 20 years of experience in technology as well as cybersecurity, just a wealth of knowledge, a fantastic network. And then also in April, we announced the addition of Chris White, a former deputy CISO of a Fortune 300 organization. Started off his career as in the Air Force doing cybersecurity, and essentially, what Chris helps with is he also recently joined us as the CISO for Tego Cyber. But in addition to his 30-plus years of experience, Chris also has a fantastic network, built these managed cybersecurity practice for EY, Ernst & Young, as well as, gives a lot of value from the view of a CISO in third-party risk management, making sure that we have all our ducks in the row as a cybersecurity company, approaching other companies to provide cybersecurity services. So just a wealth of knowledge, experience, as well as incredible networks of our management team. Tego Cyber, we are a public company. We are currently traded on the OTCQB as TGCB. We have approximately 23 million shares issued and outstanding, authorized at 50 million. About 8.5 million of our shares are held restricted by insiders with about 30% inside ownership. So if anybody is interested in Tego Cyber, you can go on the OTCQB and purchase shares on the open market at this time. We did have an S1 offering that was open, recently closed on the 9th of August, primarily placed with friends and family and friendly investors. So really quickly, before I go to the questions, just wanted to go over some of the highlights of Tego Cyber. Of course, that globally recognized management team that I talked about earlier, accelerated path to revenue and profitability. Software as a service companies mostly have that. We have an extremely scalable and sustainable business model with high gross margin, exponential growth potential within the industry, being in an emerging market and not having a lot of competition. As far as the company goes, extremely low debt to equity ratio, a low share count, held with friendly investors as well. And then within the cybersecurity industry, because we are doing something different, you actually do see a ton of merger and acquisition activity within the cybersecurity industry. Being and doing what Tego is doing, we would be a prime takeout target for either one of the companies that we're integrating into, or another threat intelligence company, or one of these larger organizations that is kind of gobbling up other smaller cybersecurity companies. So a prime takeout target for acquisition as an exit for Tego Cyber. I'll leave up a slide with our contact details if you are interested in getting some more information. And I know I'm starting to run out of time, so let me go to the questions here. Let's see, there's a question about what is our product marketing strategy. And really, Tego has what I would call a hybrid approach to our go-to-market strategy. Of course, we'll be going directly after the 15,000 Splunk customers, but we're also going to those customers through other sales channels, so channel sales, consultancy firms, managed security service providers, MSSPs, that are already working for those clients. You know, I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but there's a huge skills gap within the cybersecurity industry. In the U.S. alone, there's about 500,000 vacant positions that will remain unfilled just because there's not enough people with those skills to take those roles. So there's a ton of vacancies. Organizations are relying very heavily on consultancies and those MSSP partners to help provide solutions as well as talent within cybersecurity. So folding them into our sales strategy is an important piece of our go-to-market strategy, because they're the ones that the clients are relying on for advice, and they're the ones already working with the clients and providing those kind of solution recommendations to them. So the hybrid approach of both directly going to the Splunk customers as well as working through the partners that are working with them for providing cybersecurity services. As well as there's a big conference held by Splunk that will be held in Las Vegas in October. We plan on attending that with some of our strategic partners. You'll probably be seeing some announcements in the near future about some of those strategic partnerships. Unfortunately, can't talk about it right now, but we have all of those things in the works right now. Let's see. There's a question about looking at the competitive landscape. What larger player does our company aspire to be? So we're actually trying to think of the best way to answer. We're aspiring to be a bit different than the competing solutions and the competing providers out there, because there's a lot of frustration within the industry of threat intelligence, of providers not providing the additional context that the security operations teams need, not giving the security operations teams the speed to decision that they need. But then also a key that Tego Cyber prides itself in that we actively engage with our customers through our development process, as well as we will continue to engage with our customers after they become clients of the company. They're not just another line on our income balance sheets and everything like that. Our customers will help drive the product and the vision for the company in helping us identify and going to them and regularly touching base with our clients and saying, you know, what are your frustrations? What are the shortcomings? What can we do to make your life easier? So in that question, we're not really aspiring to be like anybody else. We're looking to kind of change the game and make it more about the customer and what they need, rather than just saying, I know what you need, here's your solution. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see, there is a question about, are we considering integrating into SOAR tools as their next generation cybersecurity solutions? So yes, absolutely. We are looking at, and we had some excellent conversations with some next gen providers at the Black Hat conference. particularly some of the endpoint detection and response companies, the SOAR platforms, about possibly integrating into their tools. Now, one of the reasons why we chose to integrate into the SIEM platform first is that there's the idea of living where the customer's data lives. So by integrating into the SIEM platform, it allows Tego Cyber to take a look at the entire customer environment and identify the threats within the environment. SOAR tools and EDR, endpoint solutions, firewalls, those are kind of like not so much SOAR, but the firewall and the EDR and the antivirus solutions are kind of one-point solutions. They only ever see what happens at the firewall or what happens on the endpoint. So it's just kind of a single point where you can identify threats. The SIEM platform sees everything within the enterprise because that's where all the data for the enterprise is living. So, you know, we are looking at that. We had some good potential partnership discussions at Black Hat. We are exploring the possibilities, but right now we're focused on the SIEM platforms. Like I mentioned, there's about 25 different possibilities out there that we can integrate into. So just following through kind of Forrester and Gartner's Magic Quadrant and who's the up-and-comers. I'm really focused on that over the next 2 years. I think I answered all the questions. So I thank all of you for attending today and taking time to learn more about Tego Cyber. If you are interested in learning more about the company, please feel free to visit our website, as well as if you're interested in cybersecurity in general, the trends, what's happening within cybersecurity, cyber attacks as well. I encourage you to follow us either on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. We post a ton of educational, informational news out there about cybersecurity and the industry. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the Tego Cyber presentation. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect.